I was talking about what's going to happen in China that no one's talking about, or very few of us are talking about. Once upon a time in 1974, a man by the name of Richard Nixon made a deal with the king of Saudi Arabia and says, here's the deal. We'll protect you guys, but it's going to cost you a little bit. We want to create what they call the petrodollar. So anytime anybody buys oil from you or any of your OPEC members, if you want us to protect you, we'll send our military there. We'll take care of you guys. But here's the deal. Anytime you sell a barrel of oil, people have to pay for it in dollars. It's petrodollars. Capisce? And that's what they did. The petrodollar. Anytime you buy oil around the world, you pay for it in dollars. Not anymore. And this is what could bring down America. This is what I was talking about that could shock this nation. Remember you heard those stories before World War II in Germany? People going to the supermarket, the grocery stores in those days, with a wheelbarrow full of worthless money to buy what they needed. The same thing may happen in America, not if, but when the petrodollar dies. And the death nail is being banged in right now, because here's what happened. You want to put them sanctions on Russia? Okay. Chinese say to Russia, listen, we're buying your oil, right? Because they export a lot of oil to Russia. But we're not going to pay you in dollars anymore. You could take your petrodollar, America, they're saying, and shove it. We're going to pay you, Russia, in our currency, the yuan. And you're Russian, and you say, but I don't want the yuan. You don't want the yuan, we don't want your oil. But I'll tell you what we'll do. You could we'll buy your oil and we'll give you yuan, but you could change that yuan anytime you want into gold. Okay. Sell you the oil, give us the yuan. Hey, Russia's buying more gold than anybody, aren't they? That's a fact. That's a fact. Russia was the biggest purchaser of gold of any central bank last year. Hey, Iran, they don't like you over there in America. They got sanctions on you. And they may put more sanctions on you, say the Chinese, but we want your Iranian oil and your natural gas because we need it over here. China is one of the biggest importers of commodities in the world. Some 40 to 50% of all the copper sold each year is bought by the Chinese. So the Chinese are saying to the Iranians, listen, we know the United States has sanctions on you, but we want your natural gas and your oil. But we're not going to pay you. We're not going to deal in dollars. We're going to deal in yuan. And you could cash your yuan in for gold anytime you want. I mentioned about Richard Nixon making a deal in 1974 with the Saudis about the petrodollar. Here's one for you. The Chinese have now gone to the Saudis and saying, listen, we're not dealing in your dollars anymore, man. We'll give you a yuan for oil. But you can cash that yuan in for gold anytime you want. The death of the petrodollar will be the death of the American economy, because what will happen is it will no longer allow the Federal Reserve banksters to print up all the money that they want to keep this Ponzi scheme going. And China may be the assassin of Mr. Ponzi. Because what will the Federal Reserve do? I mean, you know, people would say to me, oh, Celente, you said the markets were going to crash in 2012. Yeah, I did. But hey, I didn't know that they'd make up a thing, Junior, called zero interest rate policy, Junior, or quantitative easing, Junior. I didn't know that they would be giving tens of trillions of dollars to banks all over the world to bail them out, Junior, because they could print all the money that they want. Once the petrodollar dies, so too does America's status as the world's #1 economy. It's a big one. And it's not being covered. Hey, did you hear about that guy Weinstein? Yeah. What a surprise. So, that's why I'm talking about China and other China news. That's very important to understand. When China got into the World Trade Association in 2001, it got in just weeks after 9/11. Remember, we've got to hate them commies. We don't like them commies, but we're going to do business. It got in 2 weeks after 9/11 when no one was paying attention. Do you know what the middle class in China was back then? I got it right here. 5%. 5%. Now the middle class in China? Almost 35%. That's how China's taking over. The business of China is business, and it's being run by the government. They'll do anything they can to keep that government alive and more money flowing in. Some important news, some current events forming future trends in the world of trends. What happened over in Europe just today? The ECB, the European Central Bank, they're going to keep that quantitative easing going, but a little easier than it was. That's going to bring down the price of gold a bit because the dollar's getting a little bit stronger. But again, we're looking at gold as a long-term play, and we see the dollar getting weaker as, going back to China, they buy more oil without those petrodollars. So, our forecast for gold, I want to make this very clear, and it's been clear now for a couple of years. Right now, we're in a trading range of about 1350 to 1150. That's it. Bap, bap, bap. You have a small downside risk. Gold has to break over $1,400 an ounce. 1460, 1480, 1450, 1470. When it stabilizes above that, shoot, a Bitcoin rise. We see it going to 2,000 plus. That day will come sooner rather than later. And on the markets,